Still with me in the studio today, I have Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate. I also have Achike Chude, human rights and civil society activist. Chude is also the national secretary of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. Achike Chude will be joining us from the Abuja studio, while Mr. Ologun is seated here with me in the Lagos studio. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today on this edition of This Is Live, the Sunday talk show. Now, very quickly, we have had two guests so far on this program. Our immediate, last guest was talking about climate change, Ogunlade Martins, and he was talking about the Los Angeles fires, lessons that African leaders can learn, and also issues about climate adaptation, climate financing, and the viability of the climate change conferences that we have had from COP26 to 27 to 28. Our first guest was Michel Obi, veteran sports journalist, president of the International Sports Press Association, and he was talking about the appointment of Eric Sekou Chal from Mali as the head coach of the Nigerian Super Eagles. And I was wondering, well, why this is really, a disservice or not to Nigerians, that we have to abandon our local coaches and go to Mali or go to Algeria to go and look for a coach. But he also says that Eric Sekou Chal, has some significant experience, but if he's able to at least, get the CHAN championship for Nigeria, he will be optimistic that he can do it with qualifying Nigeria for the 2026 World Cup. Well, that's about that. I don't know where you want to start from, but let me start with Mr. Jide Ologun, who is with me here in the Lagos studio. First, to look at those two issues. Mr. Ologun.
Thank you very much. Let's start with the California fire. It's been quite devastating, and we express our concerns to the Americans who have been impacted by the wildfire, and particularly when it has gone to challenge the Hollywood vicinity that has become an institution globally. And I believe that many would never have thought that such an external shock could visit California. And so far, it's been reported about 16 dead, about 37,000 acres wiped off by fire, about 12,000 structures impacted, and we have about 153,000 evacuation orders. And there had been some challenges also testing the state of infrastructural development, particularly the firefighting vulnerability. But the government is rising up to the occasion. And like the guest mentioned also, there is trauma aspect of it. And in the business environment, the insurance company will have a lot to deal with, given that crisis that visited the US. And globally speaking, it's a wake-up call. I recall that in the first tenure of Donald Trump, who of course will be returning to the White House in some days from now, he never really believed in the climate change agenda, which is the Agenda 13, climate action of the Sustainable Development Goals. And right now, the world is facing that challenge, the rising sea level, the change in temperature, and different kinds of challenges that urbanization has brought to the globe. And one of the key goals in the SDG is for nations to come together and collaborate and see how to fight. And of course, he also spoke about the lessons to learn in Africa, in Nigeria specifically. And like we say in public relations, there are two sides to crisis management. You are either proactive or reactive. And you can see now that even the United States of America, that has been perceived as proactive for years, is now being visited by a huge challenge that's probably introducing another perception of being reactive, because this fire visitation has been quite overwhelming. But the people have risen up to support one another, and I hope that in Africa, in Nigeria, we know that this climate change is of global concern, and we put everything in shape to prepare for any eventuality. And of course, talking about the new coach that will be resuming on Monday, reportedly, for the Super Eagles, the narrative on the issue of information excited me, when Doctor came up with the 4-3-1-2 formation. And the man said it's no longer about formation, it's now about information. And many have described that decision as a gamble. But then we have some matches ahead that we test the gambling that NFF has been, reckoned to have gone into. Because at the end of the day, when we begin to have the wins, then we justify that decision. But for many, they are still wondering, why are we still in this direction? But by and large, if you go through the ecosystem of our sport history in Nigeria, it's like we've gone around the local and the foreign, talking about Finidi, Eguavon, and I think more interesting is the need for us to have the inspiration for our players to rise up and choose to give us wins. And he also mentioned the preparedness of the present government to fund sports and make sure that what used to set us back in terms of the corruption in making early payments to the stakeholders and things like that are not recorded. But for him, let's see how he delivers on the KPIs, and particularly when we have some matches lined up as we look forward to 2026, and I wish him the best,
Yes, we all, I'm sure, wish Eric Sekweshal the best. Achike, Chude, your take on the two issues before us.
Yeah, the California fire incidents, obviously, there are certain things that the world, the globe, has to contend with, and that is the issue of climate change that has been in the front burner for some decades now, following, I think, the first Earth Summit in the late, early 80s, or, in Brazil. The matter has remained in the front burner, and with nations, trying to show the urgency of the need to tackle this issue of climate change. Obviously, from the period of skepticism to general acceptance, that is where we are now. There's a general acceptance that, yes, climate, the climate change issue is something that the world should address itself, But beyond that, is the politics of it, if you look at exactly what is going on. And one of the most interesting things I saw or I observed in the last American election, presidential election, I don't know how many people noticed it, is the fact that even the party that has been championing climate change, that came up with the Green New Deal, that is the Democrat Party, was very, very silent about climate change and the dangers of climate change and the need to tackle it urgently, to the extent that even Kamala Harris had to roll back on some of the things that she was talking about, banning fracking. She made it very clear that she was not going to ban fracking, but that was what she said, because she believed, and the Democrat Party believed, that fracking was also a problem and contributing to global warming. And so it just tells you that when it comes to politics itself, climate change will take a second, will play second fiddle to politics. But I think that the biggest problem, you see, when people talk about the need to address climate change, you ask yourself, which are the countries that have been in the forefront? Yes, under the Biden administration again, of course, I just said that emphasis was not even on climate change at all. For the purpose of the last election. But you realize, and of course, Trump keeps on talking about the need to have cheaper energy. And he believes that the route to cheaper energy in the United States is to drill, baby drill. That has been his mantra. And then beyond that again, they are also looking at competition. China is not relenting in its drive to satisfy its enormous energy needs. And so what it means is that the agreements and the movement towards having the right kind of climate condition in the country will be subverted as long as these countries eternally or perpetually continue to move towards greater industrialization and greater economic dominance in the world. Then you also have Russia. Russia is also another major pollutant. So when you talk about these three countries, United States, under the Trump presidency, China with their, continuous test for dominance in industrialization, and then Russia also, and there may be a few other countries, and you realize that the whole discussion about climate change, is in danger and will always continue to play second fiddle to politics, either at the domestic or international level, and that is, actually unfortunate. Then again, it's very clear that what happened in California, you cannot divorce it from some of the problems of climate change. The Harmattan period, and then the wind coming in and then enhancing the flames that wreaked havoc in California, the Palisades. But at the same time, there's the issue of gross mismanagement, and lack of proper governance. Because if you look at what has happened, the trend, the issue of cutting down of costs, budgets for the fire department, fire service, and the government was warned, the mayor was warned, Karen Bass, that it was going to have very grave consequences. About $17 million was cut from that. And that was why in a place like the United States, when the fire service went to the water hydrants, there was no water to use and put out the fire. So there was absolutely gross negligence and incompetence. And perhaps, and for a country like the United States that a lot of people look up to, I think it is something that the world is not used to seeing from that part of the world. Then I think essentially, again, so it's a horrible situation, but I think it wouldn't have been gotten as bad as it did if not for a little, mismanagement at that level. Then let's look at the issue of the appointment of Chelle, the Malian coach. Obviously, NFA cannot tell us that the man was actually appointed on the basis of his track record, because he does not have any track record to show Nigerians. There are other things that would have driven that decision, that would have driven them to make that decision. Perhaps the financial involvement. If you're going to bring somebody from Europe, you're going to pay much more, and so it's a gamble. It's a gamble, and if there's anybody that has a point to prove, it has to be Chelle himself, because people are looking at him. And if you look at the way and manner he was appointed, a lot of people, even sports pundits, were very surprised that they had gotten to that level, and then the announcement was made. And I think the NFA or the NFF was being very smart about it, because if they had, given Nigerians, they had put them in the know that this was likely going to happen, the barrage of criticism for that decision would have forced them to beat a hasty retreat. So we hope that there will be something to gain from it. Fine, there's something that that Mali did not have that Nigeria has. There's something that he did not have in Mali that he will have in Nigeria, and that is the glut of football stars that are playing their best football in some of the biggest leagues in the world, essentially Europe, La Liga, Germany. England, Germany, and La Liga, and France. And so perhaps with this team of players, he might be able to do what he was not able to do with Mali, his ability to manage these players. But again, some of these players tend to have a lot of ego. And that's why sometimes when you're appointing a coach, you also want to appoint a coach that has also made some achievements so that he could be respected by the players. And that might be an issue, but it depends on his ability, his man management ability. That might also help him to get the buy-in of some of these players going forward. So we hope again that he will do well. Nigeria, this is football. It's one thing is is one thing that we don't joke with. And I think it is time that we begin to garner a bit of laurels, especially at the senior men level. The women have done it to us time and time again, but we need the men to step up. And we hope that with this coach, that perhaps we might take turn a new corner.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ologun. Thank you, Achike Chude. But before we take the next topic, I would like to use this opportunity to congratulate one of our colleagues, Opeyemi Adamolekun, who is 50 years old today. She's celebrating Opeyemi's jubilee today, and she's providing implications. There has been a Thanksgiving in the morning. There is a reception. I don't have a permission to announce where the reception is taking place. But we are excited, that Opeyemi Adamolekun is 50 today. And all of us here, we wish her many happy returns. She's one of the oldest hands on this table. We started together in the days of early beginning, when nobody even knew This Day Live or, Arise News, from our papa to Ikoyi to everywhere. And she's been a very consistent, contributor to this program. And she's also a very active civil society, a lady with public conscience, a woman who is committed to the making of Nigeria and who is committed to defending the rights of the voiceless and the defenseless in Nigeria. Opeyemi Adamolekun, have a great day, happy birthday, many happy returns. In the same measure, we would like to congratulate Chief Razak Akoni Okoya, the chairman of the Eleganza Group, who is 85 years old today. Chief Okoya, as you all know, has been one of those persons who, through entrepreneurship, has contributed to the making of Nigeria in terms of creating jobs and opportunities for generations of Nigerians over the decades. And today is 85. He deserves to celebrate and enjoy himself. Chief Okoya, happy birthday. So today is dedicated to Opeyemi Adamolekun. And also we congratulate Chief Razak Okoya. Mr. Jide Ologun, you know Opeyemi very well. Achike Chude also knows her very well. We sit down here. So I would like to hear from the both of the two of you celebrating her.
She's an Ondo State icon too. That must come.
You Ondo State people.
Yeah.
Okay. Celebrate your Ondo sister.
We are very proud of her. Resilient, focused, creative, and forthright. And I think I appreciate that aspect of her, and I may have to seek an ex parte order for you to disclose where the reception is. No,
you have the invitation. You have the invitation. You have to show up at the implications.
She's welcome to the 5th floor, and then we pray that she will go from glory to glory, from strength to strength. She's a woman admired so much, for her contributions to human development. We appreciate her. Many happy returns.
Achike Chude. Achike, are you still there with us?
Yeah, apart from, yes, I am here. Apart from being a colleague on This Day Live, she's a friend, and she's also a fighter, in the trenches. We have met on several occasions, and she's a very strong member of the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Apart from her own, organization that she has run very well all this while. I think one of the things I can say about her is consistency, of opinion, and then practicalizing her opinions. She's a very strong-willed person, quietly soft-spoken, but in a way, an iron lady. If you get to know her well, she's quite, like I said, she's a very resilient person. And it's very, very cerebral. That's one other thing that you have to say about her. She's very, very intelligent and has a grip on issues. So how much more can you say about a person? I also wish her the very best, moving forward. Best of health, and best of all the other blessings that I'm sure she clamors for on a daily basis. God bless her.
Okay, I wish I could have Opeyemi Adamolekun's picture on the screen as we celebrate her. It's Opeyemi Adamolekun's jubilee. Executive Director, enough is enough. There she is. Congratulations, Okpayemi Adamolekun. Thank you very much. So let's take the next topic of the day. Now, as the federal government approaches the first telecom tariff hike in over a decade, Nigerians are demanding that mobile network operators justify the increase by delivering substantial improvements in service quality. For years, subscribers have called for better network quality, citing frequent call drops and slow data speed. They argue that if telecom companies are to benefit from higher tariffs, consumers should experience a tangible improvement in the services they are paying for. However, telecom giants, including MTN, Nigeria, and Airtel, have defended the hike as essential to address economic challenges such as inflation, foreign exchange instability, and rising diesel prices. Well, gentlemen, hike in telecom tariffs.
Yeah.
We were told that the telecom operators wanted 100% hike. They are citing foreign exchange instability, cost of diesel, a disenabling business environment, but the federal government says, well, it won't be up to 100%. Maybe you will get 40%. And the Subscribers Association, Telecom Subscribers Association, says, well, 40% will help, to enhance services. But the ordinary man, they say now we may pay up to 22 naira per minute, okay? Up to about 4 naira.
8 naira.
8 naira per bundle of data.
Yes,
No, between 4 naira and 8 naira per bundle of data. So, but some subscribers are saying, well, if they improve service, provision, maybe they will pay. Well, I don't know. Maybe this one will mean that Nigerians have to learn to talk less. What do you think, Mr. Ologun?
From the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy to withdrawal of energy subsidy, now we have this. And let me say this. When you talk about the quality of service, I doubt if it should be tied to those conditions that have been presented. Everyone is feeling the heat of the inflation. The foreign exchange crisis is hitting everyone. The pump price of diesel. So we all know that the business environment is quite hostile while the government is trying to, through some policies, to stabilize and make it friendly. But having said that, you see, Nigerians have had to pay so much in terms of the low quality of services that have been rendered by some of these telcos. What can we do in respect of that to ensure that consumers are protected from exploitation by business enterprises in Nigeria? I know why I'm saying this. Now the minister has told the citizens that it may not be 100% hike, between 40% and 50%. You see, whether the citizens agree to it or not, it's likely to be implemented, and they've been speaking to some stakeholders. But what is the guarantee that when that hike comes, that Nigerians will enjoy what they are paying for? And I think there should be disciplinary measures to close that gap. And I bring in a quick precedent here. Recall all the promises given to us while unbundling the electricity sector. Oh, it will do this, it will do that. But today, we still have the issue of estimated billing, crazy billing, band A, band B, band C, and different kinds of mismanagement that is not delivering the best to the citizens. In fact, there is a news that came out early this year now, within the week, about another grid collapse. But some are denying that it's not grid collapse, they're using one expression. So please, can consumers have the best? Because it appears that in Nigeria, consumers have very little say in hike issues. The government just comes out to mention it just for the sake of perhaps courtesy. Please look in the direction of the fact that those who pay for services must enjoy the services. And I must say, I commend the aviation sector where the regulators have come in to say that no, some of the practices that you embark on to take your customers for granted will no longer be tolerated. And on that note, I want to finally ask the government that please, this is another call for the urgency required in dealing with the global economy space of this country to ensure that we begin to scale down the cost of living so we start enjoying a high standard of living. So those are my submissions in the interim.
But you are not bothered about the hike. You think it's okay. You will be
Doctor,
willing to pay more.
Being bothered, it does not solve any problem. Psychologically, that's what I've realized. That's why I picked it from the angle of fuel subsidy. We have many things to bother about. I've stopped bothering. That's the truth. And so it's now a matter of prioritizing your business concerns. And that is why even the Lagos State government, came up with the issue of hybrid HR experience, work at home and come 2 days, which is also affecting productivity because we have some documents we are processing with the probate office. It's either they say somebody is not in office, this one and that, and so these are issues. It's affecting the citizens. But like I said, it's as if government does what they want to do. And that's why I'm asking and demanding, can customers enjoy what they pay for? Can we enjoy what we pay for? We are not even talking about banks now today, all the kinds of deductions for service charges and this and that and this. So please, protect the consumers. Protect them. And if the government handles the economic space effectively and bring down the cost of doing business, we may not have all these hikes. And that is why I said, despite all the hikes in the energy sector, can we now say we have consistent power supply? In fact, some who subscribe to the Band A, out of the promise that now you will enjoy, it's not everyone that is enjoying the promises. So in public relations, we say you walk your talk. So government should hold them accountable that even when this hike is approved and Nigerians pay, perhaps with few or little option, they must enjoy what they have paid for. It's important.
Okay, let's listen to Achike Chude. Achike Chude, they say you have to pay more to make calls. Are you happy?
Well, how much more beating can Nigerians? How much more beatings can Nigerians take? They've been beaten by everything, left, right, and center. And so it's a terrible situation. It's an unfortunate situation that they find themselves in. And then, I think they long got to a point of what do we do? Whatever comes up. If you wake up in the morning, you expect the best, but whatever, negativities you face, you just take it like that, stoically, like a stoist. But I think that in itself could also be very, very dangerous. Obviously, one more increase, on top of all the other increases that Nigerians have had to face, especially in the midst of when you consider the fact that incomes are not increasing. So you realize that it may be a fulfillment of the biblical injunction that the little that the poor man has will be taken away and given to the rich, because it would appear that the corporates in Nigeria have continued to get away with blue murder. The question has been asked again in the studio by Jide Ologun there. What happened with the promises of improvement in services with regards to energy supply if we allow them to increase? And over the years, the past 10 years, I think they've had, or 15 years, they've increased their tariffs about not less than 10, 12 times. And we have not noticed any noticeable increase in the supply of energy. And unfortunately, if you look at the quantum of supplies that we are still having in 2025, it is akin to what we are having even under the military dictatorship of Sani Abacha, 3,500, maximum 4,000 naira on a consistent basis, in spite of over $25 billion that have been spent in that sector. And nothing meaningful has been done. Now, we can't forget the fact that some 8-10 years ago, Brazil spent about $10 billion to build, a dam that would generate electricity, and they were able to do that $10 billion, and they were able to build a dam that would generate 10,000 megawatts of electricity. So after over $25 billion, what exactly are we generating? And so it's sad, it's unfortunate. This increase is one more increase I know that Nigerians cannot bear, but they will look for a way around it. Of course, the only way they can get around it is to sacrifice other things that are also essential. There has to be an opportunity cost to this increase that is going to take effect. And we must not forget the promises by the BPE when the rounds of privatization kicked in, and the Daily Times and some other organizations were going to be sold off. Even the banks, when the banks had to recapitalize, one part of the conditions given to them by the federal government was that there must not be any loss of staff. But immediately that process was allowed to go on, the very next thing they did was to lay off staff. And what did the government do? Practically nothing. So sometimes you just have the impression that the people are at the mercy of so many negatives in the country. This is not good, this is not okay. But then the reality is, what can we do? Of course, we cannot make the argument that the operating environment is easy. It's not, absolutely not easy. Everybody is feeling it. The industries are feeling it. We have seen industries that have left the country, industries that have sold off their equity, to others and all that. And so it is difficult. Yes, we know also that there has been the issue of the loss of fiber optics, or the cutting of fiber optics. In fact, we are told that they suffered a loss of around 35.4 billion naira last year, with some of these cables being cut at a rate of about 70, having about 70 cuts in different places a day. So what it means, yes, the president has gone ahead to sign, is it the infrastructure regulatory bill or something to that effect? But that's not going to solve the issue. You must solve the underlying issue of poverty, hunger, that is, making people do things that they should, under normal circumstances, should not be doing. That is not to justify any criminality, any criminal act. But whether you are talking about insurgency, terrorism, and the rest, there is an underlying issue, the issue of poverty. So while you are fighting the insurgents, for instance, in the battlefield, you also have to look at the issue of poverty, because it's a root cause for some of these issues that are plaguing the country. And then same thing with this attempt to increase the rates of calls and the charges. It's one more increase too many in this country, and they need to give Nigerians a break. The government must put on its thinking cap, and then they begin to see how these issues can concretely be addressed, not through promises, but through concrete realization of the promises they have made to Nigerians. The people can only take so much.
Okay, thank you, Achike Chude. On that note, let's take a short break again on this program, This Day Live, this Sunday Talk Show. When we return, the program will continue. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I still have Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate. I also have Achike Chude, human rights and civil society activist and national secretary of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. Now to our next topic of the day. A 45-year-old teacher, Stella Nwadigo, has been remanded by the Ogba Chief Magistrate Court in Lagos for assaulting a 3-year-old pupil of Christ Methods Primary School in the Ikorodu area of Lagos State. A viral video last Wednesday showed Nwadigo slapping the toddler at intervals for not learning to write numbers fast enough. The video attracted public condemnation and outrage, leading to the teacher's arrest. During the arraignment, the police prosecutor, Hakeem Raji, told the court that the defendant committed the offenses on Tuesday, January 7, 2025 at about 11 a.m. Well, let me come to you quickly, Achike Chude. I think on the morning show, we discussed this same subject in the course of the week. We were, looking at the issue of child abuse and corporal punishment. And, the guests, their conclusion was that, look, yes, the laws make room for correcting students, for discipline, but not for abuse, not for, beating up a toddler because she cannot write fast enough or she cannot learn fast enough. Now, what do you think are the omissions within the system responsible for this? Where has the system failed the children? Where have the parents failed the children? Where is it that the school system itself has failed the children? I'll start with you, Achike.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you want talking about the system itself, producing such people, then you're going to ask yourself about the qualification of the people like some of these teachers. What is the level of their qualification? But beyond that, again, the institutions, the local institutions themselves that produce these teachers, what is their qualification? What is the ownership structure of these bodies? And then what level of supervision, if any, is the local government paying or the state to some of these institutions to allow this kind of egregious, behavior? It is not as if you don't have sometimes even public institutions that you don't have this kind of, infraction. But I think we should start with that again. Most of the people that are doing this, again, the people that are teaching, are they teaching because they're in love with the career or because they have no other job to do? So most of these people are not, teaching is a career, it's a profession, under normal circumstances. But over the years, the respect for teaching has gone down. So all manners of people are now coming into the field, masquerading as teachers. So obviously there is a failure somewhere. And then for such a woman, you ask yourself again, has she got a family? Is she a mother? Because you don't expect a mother. There are certain things when you talk about, and a child, it doesn't even have to be a mother, even a man. If the aggressor, for instance, happen to be a man, it's the person is equally guilty. But more so for a woman who is supposed to have the make of kindness naturally, being a woman, because she's a mother, she's a caregiver. So many things are actually wrong with the society. Again, ask yourself whether she's actually been watching social media, because we have seen these things on social media from different parts of the world, in Africa especially, and then only for her to repeat this kind of outrageous behavior. So it's a baby. This is a baby. This is a child. There's no other way you can put her behavior down to. You can't describe her behavior as just something that is beyond abnormal. Obviously, she has maybe an emotional problem or a psychiatric problem. If you cannot recognize the fact that this is a baby, this is a toddler, and then you have to use physical force against a child, you want to correct a child, obviously, and that's part of the training too. What kind of training, what manner of training are they giving there? You want to correct a child like that. There are different ways to, correct a child, not by beating a child who doesn't even know the difference between left and right at this particular point in time. So it is good that the authorities have intervened, and I hope that the proper thing will be done. But, Jide Ologun there is a lawyer. But, the funny thing about lawyers is that she can even get to court, first of all, and plead not guilty. And the law allows her to be presumed to be innocent, even though everybody has seen what has happened. And then you should go there, and then the lawyer would also say that she's also not guilty. Of course, these are, of course, legal issues. Maybe on a lighter note, but it's a terrible situation, really.
Well, Mr. Ologun, yes.
Thank you. Let me take it from where my good brother landed. Actually, we have a provision of the Constitution on presumption of innocence. So it's a constitutional provision, despite the prima facie evidence that is available. But then there are three pillars in criminal justice ecosystem. You talk about thorough investigation, diligent prosecution before a committed judiciary. And right now, she's been arraigned, and we expect that the prosecution will be diligent, because when you talk about investigation, we have concrete evidence of what she has committed. And I also align with Achike on the fact that She's expected also to be taken for psychological checkup and, psychiatric check. And right now in the country, there are a lot of pressures on people. I recall the case of Ariyo in Ogun State in 2024, I think around October, a young student also that died from complications after being compelled by the teacher to carry out 162 frog jumps. And added to that were 24 strokes of cane. The young student died. And schools should be careful on how you met out this discipline. In Sunday school today in the church, I took the summary on empathy. Empathy is when you connect with the feelings and emotions of the others. And in specific terms, if you're in the medical field, you need to be empathetic towards the patients you manage, because also in the medical field, you find some doctors and nurses who are so cruel to the people they are expected to care for. And teachers are expected. And you can discipline. I experienced it. I don't know where Mr. Ibrahim is now. He was my arithmetic teacher in St. Anthony's Primary School, and the man drilled me, I'm not sure whether I liked him for that or not, but I thank God he did that later in life.
This primary school, that's in which village?
Okakoko in Ondo State, the capital of the world. I was waiting for that, doctor. You see, then if I scored 94 in arithmetic, Mr. Ibrahim will call me out and cane me as if I scored 25. But I benefited from it because what that did for me was to keep on improving. So those who set up the education system must realize that you have to do things decently. And you may want to read the case of this medical doctor who has excelled so much that he somebody even told him he could not amount to anything in life. But there was a teacher that picked him up and said, you will excel. So it's a really terrible case. And like my brother Chude mentioned, I hope this is not one of the cases that we fizzle away by interplay of many forces. I just mentioned the case of Ariyo, and many will just promptly recall. But where has that case gone? 162 frog jumps for a student. What could have been the offense with 24 strokes of cane? And the boy eventually died. So, and again, at the macro level, I also want to call on the Ministry of Education in Lagos State to please profile the quality of schools that are being put out there for the citizens to put their children. It will amaze you what quality of services are rendered. But obviously, and without being preemptive, that teacher in Wadigbo must have been under some serious pressure that she has transferred her aggression to that young 3-year-old. And in HR, we call that emotional ventilation, but that was too much for a 3-year-old. And finally, let me say on this note also that right now, when you want to behave, realize that there may be an informal journalist recording your misbehavior, and that is a plus again. Otherwise, this could not have come to the public space. So please let empathy guide us. Whatever you do, do with human feelings, do with the fear of God. And even when Peter denied Jesus, Jesus did not cut off his head. We need to manage people with care.
Well, we hear that many of these schools, in any case, are not registered, and that the school supervision system or the school inspectorate, system, which used to be the tradition once upon a time in this country, has collapsed. But we hope that the authorities will listen, and there will be a commitment to improving standards in terms of making sure that the school is a safe environment for the child or the student at whatever level.
Exactly.
Not just in terms of physical security, in terms of persons who attack schools, but also in terms of the relationship between teachers and pupils, between lecturers and students, because there are levels of this matter. Yeah. Thank you. But let's go to the United States. Donald Trump, the second-generation New York business mogul who led one of the most consequential right-wing populist movements and changed the face of presidential politics, was found guilty of 34 counts of felony in his home city on Thursday. By this, the former president, who won November's election and is preparing to be sworn in on January 20 for a second non-consecutive term, becomes the first president in American history to be convicted. It took the jury 10 hours to come to their decision. Trump, who was impeached twice while in office, faced 4 indictments as he geared up for the 2024 race. The case in Manhattan dealt with a hush money payment to a porn star and his attempt to hide salacious information from voters to boost his electoral prospects in the 2016 presidential election. Well, there you have it, a convicted felon going to be sworn in on January 20 as president of the United States. In fact, last week, Thursday, there was another case in the state of Georgia relating to, his keeping classified documents in his Mar-a-Lago, Florida Beach resort, and also his involvement on the assault on the Capitol, as alleged, on January 6, 2021. All of this leading to Jack Smith, the prosecutor, resigning ahead of Trump's inauguration from the Justice Department. But in any case, that's not going to stop anything. Judge Merchan, who ruled on Thursday, said, this is an unconditional discharge. In other words, he's not going to go for probation or, pay any fine. It's an unconditional discharge. But the key issue under the criminal jurisdiction of the state of New York is that he's been convicted. You have to submit his DNA. You will have to go on record as a convicted person. But, well, the Supreme Court also last week ruled 5-4 that the only option forward is for him to go on appeal, to appeal the sentencing, because the Supreme Court refused to, frustrate the sentencing process. Let's start with the lawyer, Mr. Ologun.
Doctor, you see, when I was monitoring the bouquet of cases on Donald Trump, I got more confused about the American system, and the fact that he could even, maneuver to the point of contesting again and winning the elections. It became a tougher concept to understand. And as it is now, I'm really not in a haste to come to any conclusion, but it's likely that this is not going to stop him from being sworn into office. And some of the issues that came up also are issues of immunity. And we know that by the time he's sworn into office, he's covered by immunity. And if I know Donald Trump very well, he has a way of dealing with issues, and he has a way of using the presidential power to have his way. But we are studying that American jurisprudence, and I know that he will clear himself. Sincerely speaking, going by the barrage of allegations against him, one would not have thought that he would have returned as the president of the United States. So there are so many historical issues about Donald Trump. So I choose to watch what will happen in the next few days.
Oh, well. Maybe you should watch more on the economic front and also the front in terms of global politics.
He also promised that he will resolve the issue of Israel and Lebanon, Russia and Ukraine. So different, but on this one, I want to see how it goes. But I can let us know this about the United States of America. The system is sound, particularly when you talk about the judicial system. So it's not likely to be a place where the rule of law is stepped aside. So, but then, like I said earlier, I believe he has the personnel, stature, and muscle to deal with this. Just one of the issues before Trump. He has dealt with many.
I hear you. Achike Chude, yes.
Yeah, well, I have a completely different, position on this matter. When we talk about the United States, you talk about the performance of the media in terms of public perception of Americans is at the lowest ebb. Americans no longer believe their media because their medias have become propaganda machines for both sides, especially in the political divide. And, and that is something that we have to learn, from in Africa. We used to think it was bad in Nigeria. But when you look at the role of the media in America, you realize that there is something much better. And I'm not saying that we cannot improve or we should not improve in Nigeria. The whole thing about the Donald Trump prosecution was simply because he wanted to run for the president of the United States. There are some Democrats themselves who said, no, if you want to beat Trump, beat him at the ballot, at the ballot box. Do not use lawfare against this person. Because there is no American president that has not committed crimes, all manners of crimes, whether it's of a salacious nature, whether it has to do with documents and all that. And that is why ultimately the American people were, the determining factor in, determining whether Donald Trump was having a fair deal at the hands of the Department of Justice, the DOJ, or not. And they spoke loudly during the election in an unprecedented manner, and elected him the president of America because they saw why do you think that every time, he was taken to court or new charges were brought up, against him, his popularity rose, the opinion poll, the opinion polls rose simply because they felt that this man is being prosecuted, and I think that was a major mistake that the Democrats made. Look at Alvin Bragg. George Mershon, is sitting on the case brought to him by Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg never wanted to take on this issue before, this matter before. He felt there was nothing to it. And that led to even one of his chief prosecutors resigning in frustration and anger. But all of a sudden, they began to institute lawsuits against him, hoping to stop him at the electoral level. And so if there's a lesson to learn, again, another lesson from Africa, that what we saw in America, regardless of our political views, is using the instrument of government against a political opponent. And this is exactly that's why you're seeing it. But again, looking at Judge Mershon's judgment, I think it's in favor of Donald Trump, unconditional discharge. It's important for him because the fact that he's able to, he's been sentenced means that they can now go forward to discharge this case against him. There are issues of some of the accusations against him being statute barred. They were not interested in that, and so many other issues that came up, even among liberal legal pundits about it. We might hate Donald Trump, we might not like him and his politics and the way he talks and the way he behaves. But what we saw was a bastardization of the political process and the legal process in the United States for purely political expediency. And that brought America to its lowest point. But the good thing again is that the American people saw through it and they spoke unequivocally and said, no, we don't buy this. Let this man be beaten at the ballot box, not in the courts, being orchestrated by the Department of Justice.
Well, okay, I got your point, Achike Chude. We have a birthday party to attend, so let's draw the curtain on this program at this point. Thank you very much, Achike Chude. Thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ologun. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.